What's up everybody, I'm Jesse Showalter and welcome back to the series all about designing and coding a responsive landing page from start to finish. In this episode, we're going to be applying some basic responsive image techniques to make your page load a little bit faster. There's a lot of talk out there about responsive image techniques and which one is the right one for which use case. I'm going to be sharing 3 of my favorite and in my opinion, the simplest ways to apply responsive techniques to your images that'll help your users have the best experience no matter what device they're on. With all that being said, let's get started. So looking at our site in our browser, there's 3 or 4 images that we're going to want to make sure are responsive so that we're not downloading heavy amounts of imagery if they're on a mobile device. First off, I have these 2 images here, the background image, this one with the color that's being used in the background, and I have my main phone. Down below, I have my double phone image and I have another background image that's being used there. You can see if I just open up my folder that has all my images in it, the original kind of background image is 1440 by 1808. You can see that right there in the dimensions, and it's about 101 kilobytes. I've created a smaller background image that's actually smaller in dimension and smaller in quality, and it's only 49 kilobytes. It may not sound like a lot, but every little bit counts. Likewise, I've opened up my sketch file and you can see that not only did I make those smaller kind of images there, but I also created smaller versions of the phones. So I went in and where my 2 phones version was, I created a single phone version and I've changed them to be a different color, not because that's how they should look, because again, I want you to see the drastic switch between the 2. We have all of our images prepared. I'll put the link to the GitHub repo where you can download all the project files down in the description. We want to jump in and start coding. Let's do it. Our background images are the same image being used no matter, how it's squeezed down. You can see down here in our download area, it's covering the entire width of the browser and it's doing its best using that cover attribute, right? So we want to just open up our project and let's go into the download section. Let's find it. There it is. We have our ID of download and we have download background. Now we have that download background, and as we noticed, download background is really, really big. If somebody's opening this up on a mobile device or they have their browser squished way down and they initially load, we don't want them to load that massive image, so we want them to load this download background small. We can do that really, really easily by just dropping this background attribute into our media query and making sure that we include the small image. And it's going to start cutting off at 680. You should see the change. So for instance, if somebody was using an iPhone SE, you can see it's going to immediately load that smaller file. The other one's sitting in the background in case their browser quote unquote can stretch and go larger, but you're just picking the right size using media queries to address the issue. Okay, that's how we can affect CSS images and CSS background images, but how do we actually, affect the images that are here in our HTML? You can see we have those images we talked about. There it is, my assets image, shoe app iOS, and that's the big one showing up here. Well, what if we want that to, depending on the screen resolution or screen size, we want that to actually change which image is being used? Well, there is the srcset attribute, and there's also the picture tag that we can use. I like the srcset attribute over the picture element because it's the most common use case for the simplest of responsive image kind of issues you'll run into, which is one of 2 things. You want to affect the image based on whether it's a retina screen or non-retina screen, or you want to affect the image based on the actual width of the browser. And so I think srcset is the easier way to go, but we're going to do both. We're going to start with srcset right here on this main image. So to add srcset to this image, it's actually really, really easy. We can can keep the kind of standard image tag that we've created there. So we've opened up that image tag, we've added an ending slash, and inside of it, this is where we're actually going to add our source set attribute. It's an attribute on the actual image tag itself. And this is where we're going to define what images we should make available to the browser. And the browser is going to do all of the work and all of the extra thinking for us. We're just going to tell them what's available and when we want it to be available. So for instance, we have our first image, the one we're already using. We're using this as a fallback for browsers that don't support srcset, but browser support at this point in 2018 is pretty rockin', so we're just gonna move on. We can put in the very first image, which is gonna be the one we're already using, but we're gonna give it some sort of parameter. When would we use this image? We can say when it's at 2x. So when a Retina screen is being used, we want to use the larger image because we want it to look really crisp and nice. But what happens if we have a non-Retina screen? Well, then we want to use the lower quality image because that'll look okay. So we're going to put a comma, and then we're going to place our next image. Remember we called that, what did we call that one? Called that one the same name with small at the end of it, and we're going to put 1x at the end. This could work. This could be just fine, and if somebody opens it up on a non-Retina machine, you're gonna get exactly what you need. You can feel confident in this. But if we wanted to check it, we could replace our Retina screen sizes with actual sizes. So for instance, we could say we want the larger image to be used when it's something at a width of 2000, not X, but W. The W that we place in there is specific to the source set attribute, and it's just saying the width of the browser. So we can say a width of 2000 pixels for the large image and a width of 1000 pixels or a width of 1000 for the smaller image. Okay, so we can just take that and save that, and now when we come into our browser and just start shrinking things down, you can see once we get down to a smaller size, it's going to clip in with our smaller image, which is great. It means we are saving a lot of time and a lot of download speed and energy by only using the smaller images when they're required. Okay, the last technique that we're gonna cover is the picture tag, which is not really my favorite, but I think it's worth covering here. If we just scroll down and we find our other image, you can see we have our image with a source. It's looking for, the twophones.png. That's this guy right here. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna come in here and just delete, well, we won't delete yet. Let's just comment out our current image that we're using. And then the first thing we're gonna do is actually type in and get a picture tag going, okay? So now we've declared to the browser in HTML, the thing you're about to look at is a picture. The next thing we're gonna do is enter in a source tag for each image that we wanna use and give it some parameters or some attributes that will help the browser make the decision. This one is not allowing the browser to do the math. We are forcing the browser to do what we tell it to do when we use the picture tag in this way. So I'm just gonna type in source, and I'm gonna give immediately the media and the source set attributes to my source tag. The media attribute is really similar to a media query in CSS. We're just defining a size, in this case just a minimum width of when to start using this picture instead of the other picture. So we want to say minimum width, and we have a CSS media query that's around 680, so we can say 681 pixels. At 681 pixels is when we're going to start using this image. Next, we're just going to come into the source set and drop in the location of the image we want to use when it hits 681 pixels. Okay, next thing we want to do is just duplicate the work that we've done, drop in another source, and this one is going to be not minimum width, but we're going to do maximum width. So we're saying anything below this size, we don't want to do 681, we want to do 680. So you can see we're kind of creating bookends. We're saying anything below 680 or anything above 681, that's when you want to use the different image. So we want to make sure we come into here, two phones, and I think we titled it two phones -1. So two phones -1, and then we actually want to come in here and just kind of cut this out, and as a fallback to make sure everything works okay bueno. We just want to put image with the standard source of 2 phones. We're gonna save it, and we're gonna come inside our browser. You can see on the screen, we're at about 1134 pixel width, and we're using the standard image we've always been using. As we start shrinking it down, right around 680 is when we would hope to see some sort of change. And there it was, right at 680. We saw it kick over from being 1 phone to 2 phones, back and forth. So now we can close up our mobile and just rock it like in a mobile way like this. And now you can see we have dictated to the browser exactly when we want it to be used. So that's it really. We've gone through now and we have replaced 2 background images in CSS. We had initial responsive techniques going by making sure we were using kind of fluid units of measurement on all of our images, making sure they can kind of squish up and down using 100% and different kind of units like that. And then we came back through, we used srcset, we used the picture tag, and we did a little bit of work using media queries. Well, that's it. Those are responsive image techniques that you can apply right now today to improve your website. There's a lot of information on the web if you want to read further about the topic. I'm going to put some of my favorite links down in the description. Also, if you have any questions, leave those in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I do lots of stuff about design and development and code just like this video, so maybe stick around. I hope you guys are having an amazing week designing amazing things, coding amazing things, and having fun while you do it. I'll see you in the next one.